She couldn't explain why. She only knew that, on that grey afternoon, with light drizzle and weary eyes, she decided to follow the nanny. From a distance, unseen, like someone searching for an answer, or running from a question that had lived too long in her chest. Anna walked quickly, her head down, carrying a faded blue backpack, and Beatrice, she just followed, as if somehow her life depended on it. Maybe it was the way Anna held her coat, or the quiet urgency in her steps. But there was something in that moment that said more than words ever could. Beatrice had always believed she understood people, but that day she realized she didn't even understand herself. And when Anna stopped in front of a place Beatrice never could have imagined, something cracked inside her, her pride, her coldness, the silence she had carefully built for years. This wasn't just a story of an employer and her maid. It was about one woman hiding the cracks in her soul behind high heels, and another who carried the weight of the world with both feet on the ground. But when the masks fall and the heart is laid bare, that's when the miracle begins. And what started in suspicion would end in something neither of them expected: redemption. No one knew exactly where she had come from. She had simply shown up one late afternoon, holding a worn-out bag and eyes that avoided meeting anyone else's. She asked for nothing, offered no explanations, just handed over a folded resume, waited in silence, and when she was called to begin, she said, "Thank you," in a tone that felt like it came from another time. From that day on, every morning at 7 sharp, Anna entered through the back door, as if not wanting to disturb. The lady of the house, Beatrice, noticed her even before learning her name. There was something different about that woman. The reserved posture, the hair pinned with a bent clip, the worn shoes, the silence that followed her like a shadow. But it was in her eyes that the secret lived, a muted glow, like someone who had cried too much but learned to swallow every tear. Anna never spoke of herself, but never avoided work either. She did everything with care, with a devotion that felt like a prayer. Throughout the week, her presence began to stir something in the house. The kettle began to whistle again, the garden looked greener, and the back room, the one that had been locked for years, was cleaned without anyone asking. Anna never questioned anything, but she noticed, and that was rare. Without even realizing it, Beatrice started watching her more closely. Who was this woman? What was she hiding behind that shy smile? And why did she leave every evening in such a hurry, without ever saying where she was going? One ordinary morning, while searching for an old key in the hallway cabinet, Beatrice noticed something odd. The silver frame, the antique one with the photo of the family in the garden, was there. But something had changed. Not the picture itself. The feeling, the dust, was gone. And the frame had been placed slightly crooked, like someone had stared at it too long. It was a tiny detail, but enough to leave Beatrice unsettled. The next day, she paid more attention. Her mother's crocheted blanket, kept for years in the glass cabinet, reappeared on the sofa. The flowers in the vase had been replaced, and a faint scent of lavender, the same as when her daughter was little, hung in the hallway. No one said a word, not even Anna. But Beatrice began to notice that in moments she thought she was alone. She'd hear the soft sound of breathing, as if someone stood outside the door, just for a moment, just to remind her there was still life in that house. Doubt gave way to a strange new feeling, nostalgia. It was as if time had returned in small gestures, as if the past whispered through every room. And at the center of it all was Anna, always moving with the same rhythm, always silent, but leaving invisible traces wherever she went. Beatrice caught herself watching the back door more often, waiting to see her arrive, and what once was routine turned into quiet anticipation. But there was something Anna still wouldn't show, something she hid every night inside a small blue box at the bottom of her backpack. Beatrice had never been the type of woman to meddle. She took pride in that, keeping her distance, being discreet, letting life go on. But on that rainy Tuesday, while Anna hung laundry on the indoor clothesline, curiosity finally won over pride. The backpack was resting on the laundry room chair, its zipper slightly open, and that's when she saw it, a small blue metal box, dented at the edges, almost childlike. It was there, half hidden between a book and a blouse folded with too much care. She didn't have the courage to touch it, but she couldn't forget it either. "That's a pretty box, looks old," Beatrice said, not looking directly at Anna. The reply came low, almost a whisper. "It belonged to my sister. It was hers." The silence that followed ached in her ears. Anna pulled the zipper gently, as if she were tucking away not just objects, but memories that still hurt. "I like keeping it close. It helps me remember she existed." And in that instant, Beatrice felt her breath grow heavy, like she had crossed into sacred ground. That night, Beatrice couldn't sleep. The rain tapped against the windows like an old drum, beating in rhythm with her thoughts. Anna had left earlier than usual in a hurry, just as she always did on Thursdays. "Do you want a ride today, Anna?" she had asked from the kitchen, trying to sound casual. "No, thank you, Mrs. Beatrice. The way there, I prefer to walk it alone." And off she went, carrying with her the box, the rain, and a mystery that no longer fit inside that house. For the first time, Beatrice thought, what if I followed her? The idea seemed absurd, until it didn't. The next Thursday, Beatrice found herself doing the unthinkable. She grabbed her coat, slipped into her walking shoes, the same pair she used for short strolls, and quietly stepped outside, keeping her distance. The street was damp, the sky still heavy with clouds. She didn't know why she was doing this. Her body simply moved on its own. Anna walked steadily, umbrella open, backpack over one shoulder, the blue box barely visible through the half-zipped pocket. She turned left, then right, slowly moving away from the tree-lined neighborhoods. The streets were narrower now, with cracked sidewalks and the smell of bakery bread mixed with bus exhaust. Beatrice felt the cold cut through her coat. A sharp wind hit her face, but she kept walking. Anna stopped in front of a modest hospital, painted in faded tones. Beatrice hid behind a closed newspaper stand and waited. Anna adjusted her umbrella, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. Beatrice inhaled deeply. Should she follow? Why did it matter so much? She crossed the street with her heart pounding in her ears. Inside, the hallway smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. One nurse spoke on the phone while another filled out forms. Beatrice pretended to read a pamphlet as she overheard, "Ms. Lourdes's daughter is upstairs. She's faithful, you know. Comes every day, rain or shine." The words struck like thunder. She climbed the stairs with careful steps. At room 216, the door was slightly ajar, and there was Anna, sitting beside a pale woman, eyes closed, fragile hands resting on the blanket. "It rained today, Mum. Just how you used to like it," Anna whispered, adjusting the plastic bracelet on the woman's wrist. "Lourdes Matos." And in that instant, Beatrice stopped walking. Her body froze, but her soul, it started moving again. Beatrice walked home slowly, as if the weight of that scene wouldn't let her move any faster. The image of Anna caressing her mother's face, speaking with tenderness and faith in the midst of pain, wouldn't leave her mind. She hadn't even known the woman's name until now, Lourdes. And suddenly it felt more familiar than the names of old friends. When she walked through her front door, Beatrice felt something different, like the air had changed, as if the house already knew something inside her had come undone. She wandered into the kitchen but wasn't hungry. Sat in a chair on the porch, a place she rarely visited. The sound of soft rain on the roof felt like a conversation with her chest. Why had that story touched her so deeply? It wasn't just Anna's actions. It was the contrast, the reminder of what she herself had forgotten. When was the last time she cared for someone like that? With time, with presence, with soul. She closed her eyes for a moment, and in that silence she heard her own heart beating differently. Gabriel, her son, called from the stairs. "Mum, did Anna already leave?" She answered softly, "She did, my love, but she'll be back tomorrow." And she looked at the spot where Anna's backpack usually rested. She had never noticed that detail before. never paid attention to the quiet traces someone leaves when they love in silence. Beatrice didn't know what to do with the restlessness blooming inside her, but she knew this much. From now on, nothing would ever be the same. Beatrice didn't sleep that night. The sheets felt rougher, the pillow stiffer, but what truly ached was the thought she couldn't shake. Anna caring for her mother with tenderness, with time, with faith. And she hadn't even shown up at the hospital during those final months. Her mother had been hospitalized for nearly 90 days. She knew that, knew every update, every test, but she never went, because she believed her mother waited too long, said too many harsh things. Because forgiveness, and she had never offered it. She pretended to be busy, and she was. Meetings, trips, contracts, goals. I'll visit next week, when things calm down. But life didn't wait. And when they called to say her mother had passed, Beatrice felt the ground vanish beneath her. Not just because she lost her mother, but because she lost her chance. The chance to say she was sorry. To hear, "I made mistakes too." To hold that cold hand and say, "I still love you." But she chose distance, because pride had always spoken louder than her heart. And now, seeing Anna, simple with wet clothes, tired skin, calloused hands, giving everything she had to her sick mother, it felt like a slap, like a mirror showing everything she herself had failed to do. Anna didn't have time, but made time, had no luxury, but gave dignity. Beatrice, who had always valued efficiency, results and recognition, now saw that perhaps she had been rich in everything, except what mattered most, presence, and that hurt her more deeply than any storm ever had. That morning Beatrice was different, but not in the way Anna expected. She was curt, direct, demanding. "I want the curtains washed today, and the kitchen cabinets too." Anna nodded without a word, but she felt it. The chill in her employer's voice, as if any sentence might turn into a splinter. What Anna didn't know was that Beatrice was trying to erase the mirror. That simple, devoted woman who cared for her mother with such reverence reminded her too much of everything she had failed to be. Beatrice found herself irritated by Anna's gentleness, by her silence, by her lack of complaints. "You never say anything, do you? It's like you live in another world." Anna hesitated, then answered with quiet grace, "Sometimes silence is all we have left, Mrs. Beatrice." And that hurt, not because it was harsh, but because it was too true. Beatrice's heart pounded harder, like her own body was telling her something was out of place. But instead of softening, she pulled away even more. Deep down, Beatrice didn't hate Anna. What she hated was what Anna represented: surrender, forgiveness, love without pride. All the things she had rejected in life, and that now cost her sleepless nights. Every gesture from Anna was a painful reminder of what Beatrice hadn't done. That's why she gave more orders, offered fewer compliments, avoided meeting her eyes. But what she couldn't see was that this fortress of control was already crumbling. And when the truth finally came to light, no wall would be strong enough to contain what was coming. Anna never spoke about her mother, never asked for time off, never used the word sick. All she did was leave at exactly 5 each day, with that calm urgency, like someone carrying an invisible clock that no one else could hear. Beatrice, suspicious as she was, had no real proof of anything. But that Thursday, something made her pause by the backpack left on the laundry room chair. The zipper was partly open, and for the first time, the little blue box, always so carefully hidden, was fully visible. On impulse, and out of guilt, Beatrice opened it. Inside were old photographs, folded with care. 2 little girls with braids and simple clothes. A child's letter written in crooked handwriting: "I promise I'll take care of Mommy, even without you here." And a beaded bracelet in soft blue, with a single name: Clara. Beatrice felt her blood run cold. Anna had a sister, and that sister had left too soon. The promise scrawled on that yellowed paper explained everything: the silence, the wait, the care. That box wasn't just a keepsake. It was a vow. It was grief turned into devotion. At that moment, something shattered inside Beatrice. an old rigidity built from pride and hurt. The image of Anna tending the house, the child, the laundry, and still going to the hospital every day, alone, uncomplaining, never seeking comfort, tightened Beatrice's chest like a stone sinking deep inside. How did she do it? How could someone so invisible be so immense? Beatrice sat on the floor of the laundry room, holding the box in her lap, and for the first time in years, she cried. Not for herself, but for someone who had always been right there, yet whom she had never truly seen. Beatrice had reached rock bottom, but she didn't know it. Or maybe she pretended not to. In the days that followed, she grew colder, more demanding. The atmosphere in the house turned icy despite the sun outside. She criticized the way Anna folded the cloths, complained about the backpack by the door. "Are you turning this into a boarding house?" Anna replied, with downcast eyes. "Sorry, Mrs. Beatrice." But even the apology irritated her. It wasn't Anna. It was everything Anna stood for. Every time Anna smiled, Beatrice felt a wave of rage. Rage at how she bore it all and still never complained. Rage at how someone with so little could give so much. And most of all, rage at the jealousy brewing inside her. Jealousy of a woman who, despite pain, had never lost her sweetness. Beatrice, on the other hand, had shut herself off like a door locked from the inside. She couldn't even open up to her husband. She held the same grudge toward him that she had for her mother, for abandoning her emotionally, and later, physically. And now, Gabriel, he too was growing up on the edges, and that consumed her in silence. One afternoon, she walked past the hallway and saw Anna stitching one of Gabriel's stuffed animals. She pretended not to see, but turned back and said, "You know he's not yours, right?" Anna looked up, calm. "I know, but I like to take care." Beatrice scoffed. "Then take care of what's yours. Don't overstep." She walked off, heart racing. It wasn't about the toy. It was about what she had lost, the ability to care, to love, to be present. But admitting that was still too soon. She needed to fall further, and she was closer than she realized. It happened in a simple moment, a half-eaten piece of toast left on the counter. Gabriel had left it there on his way to school. Beatrice glanced at it with disdain. Always leaving things around like this is a storage unit. But before she could finish the thought, she froze. She remembered her own childhood, running late, leaving crumbs behind, hoping her mother would notice, but she never did. The memory hit her like a cold wind to the chest. The kitchen spun for a second. She sat down without meaning to, her trembling hand braced on the marble. And then silence fell on her like an avalanche. Beatrice began to cry, quietly. It wasn't guilt. It was something deeper. The cry of someone who realizes, too late, that she was repeating the very pain she once endured. The same absence, the same pride, the same coldness she had always resented in her mother, now lived inside her. She thought of Anna, the way she stitched without speaking, the silence in her caring, and she felt ashamed, deeply ashamed, because with everything she had never known how to give herself. And Anna, with almost nothing, was love made visible through action. That night, Beatrice didn't eat dinner, didn't turn on the TV. She simply sat still, listening to her son's breathing in the next room. For the first time, she wished he'd wake up, ask for a glass of water, call for her. But he didn't, and maybe he was right. Because, up until that moment, Beatrice had never truly been there. It was in that silence she finally understood. She had been living a life shaped by her own pain. And if she didn't change something soon, she would lose everything, just as she'd lost her mother. And this time, there would be no time left for apologies. The next morning, Beatrice made the coffee before Anna arrived, not out of politeness, but because she could no longer delegate the gestures that mattered. She prepared a small tray with fresh bread, sliced fruit, and a flower in the center. She placed it on the kitchen table and sat down without a word. When Anna walked in, she sensed something unusual. "Good morning?" Beatrice answered only with a nod. Anna hesitated. "Would you like me to?" "Sit," Beatrice interrupted. "Today, you eat first." The day moved slowly. Beatrice cancelled a meeting. She made lunch with Gabriel, even though she hardly knew how to cook. She laughed at herself while chopping the vegetables unevenly, watched her son smile, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile back. At the end of the afternoon, as Anna prepared to leave, Beatrice called to her in the hallway. Her hands trembled as she handed over an envelope. "This isn't charity. It's recognition." Anna opened it slowly. Inside, a handwritten note, short but full. "Thank you for doing, without asking, what I never managed to do, even having everything." Anna didn't reply, but her tearful eyes spoke louder than words ever could. That night, Beatrice entered her son's room before bedtime. She sat at the edge of his bed, held his small hand, and said, "Mom is learning. Slowly, but I am." Gabriel didn't understand everything, but he smiled with the pure gaze of a child who feels truth. And Beatrice, soul stitched back together, understood too. Maybe she would never be perfect, but the rebuilding had begun, and now she would never go back to pretending she didn't feel. Beatrice tried to pretend everything was the same, that the last few weeks had left no trace. She still gave orders, wore her expensive coats, applied lipstick with precision. But the mirror no longer reflected the same woman. Her face looked harsher, her eyes dimmer. She slept poorly, ate little, and anything, a noise, a word from Gabriel, the sound of Anna laughing with the boy, was enough to make her chest tighten and her breath catch. It was as if she were living in an emotional minefield and knew she was about to break. That morning, she had an important meeting. The new partner, the one she had helped build up, would be there. But Beatrice couldn't focus. She drove to the office like she always did, walking tall in her heels, wearing her neutral expression. But inside, every voice felt distant, every word muffled. "Are you okay, Bea?" "Of course," she answered, but she wasn't. It felt like she was holding the world up on her own shoulders, and guilt, the oldest kind, was now showing up as fatigue, dizziness, silence. At the end of the day, she decided to go straight home, but the traffic was unbearable. The city felt like it was closing in from all sides. Her thoughts tangled. Her mother, her son, the letter to Anna, the time she'd wasted, and the pieces she wasn't sure she could still recover. The radio played a song she hadn't heard in years, and then it happened. 1 second of distraction, and the car moved too far into the intersection. A screech, a scream. And then silence, the real kind, the kind that hurts your soul. The sound of shattered glass still echoed when Beatrice opened her eyes. Her head throbbed, her wrist was bleeding, and her breathing came in short, ragged gasps. The first thing she saw was the bent steering wheel and the faint noise of horns and unfamiliar voices. She was alive, but something inside her wasn't. Something had broken in a way that couldn't be fixed. It wasn't just the car, it was her. For the first time in a long time, Beatrice didn't know what to do, and that terrified her. The hospital was cold, bright, far too quiet. The nurse asked if there was someone they could call. Beatrice hesitated. She could have said the name of a partner, or one of her polished friends, but she didn't. "Anna. Can you call Anna?" It was the only thing she managed to say before her eyes closed again. Hours later, when she woke, she saw a figure sitting beside her. It was her, Anna, her hair undone, eyes red from crying, but the same calm posture as always. "I'm here, Mrs. Beatrice. You're going to be okay." Beatrice tried to speak, but her voice faltered. The tears came first, hot, unstoppable. Anna took her hand without saying anything. She just held it, as if she knew that in that moment, no words would be enough. It was that kind of silent love that Beatrice had never known how to receive, and even less how to give. But now there, with her body broken and her heart in pieces, she finally understood. Everything she once mistook for weakness was strength. Everything she once rejected was a miracle. And maybe, just maybe, there was still time to begin again. The following days in the hospital were quiet, not in the hallways, but within Beatrice herself. Her body was bandaged, immobilized, covered in bruises, but the deepest fractures were the ones no X-ray could see. Anna came every day. She brought tea, a cheese roll, a book. She never asked questions, never demanded answers. She just sat by the bed, adjusted the blanket, and stayed. Does it hurt? A little. Pain teaches, doesn't it? And then, silence. But not the kind that wounds, a silence that heals. Beatrice, once always surrounded by people, noticed no one came. Not her partners, not her event friends, not the club acquaintances. And that hurt more than the cut across her forehead. The only ones who stayed were Anna and Gabriel. Her son came with his backpack and shy smile, brought drawings, asked questions, asked for love with his eyes. Beatrice cried the first time she heard him say, "I wish you stayed home more often." And she couldn't bring herself to say it out loud, but she wished the same. Upon her hospital release, Anna helped fasten the seatbelt in the taxi. Beatrice looked at her differently now. For the first time, she noticed her hands. They were simple hands, marked, but steady, honest. "Thank you." "For what, Mrs. Beatrice?" "For not walking away, even when I deserved it most." Anna smiled. She didn't reply, just nodded. And in that gesture, Beatrice understood. There was still much to mend. But the hardest part had already happened. Pride had finally fallen. In the days that followed, Beatrice didn't return to the company. She spent her afternoons reading the notes Gabriel taped to her door. Anna cared for the house as always, but now Beatrice noticed everything. The way she spoke to the plants, the care she took arranging the toys, the tenderness in each folded sheet. One afternoon, she sat on the porch with a cup in her hands and, looking at the bicycle resting against the wall, made a decision. It wasn't to pay off a debt, but to honor someone who had never asked for anything. She called her lawyer, asked for discretion. She wanted to buy a simple house, 2 bedrooms, in a quiet neighborhood, close to the hospital, with a small garden if possible. When the home was ready, she asked that it be placed under Mrs. Lurdz's name. It was the least she could do. She prepared an envelope with the key, the deed, and a handwritten note. "This is not a gift. It's gratitude for everything you are." She called Anna to the porch and handed it to her. "It's for you, a home." Anna opened it, looked, and fell silent. For a long while she said nothing, then took a deep breath. "Thank you, Mrs. Beatrice, but I can't accept it." Beatrice's eyes widened. "But why?" Anna met her gaze, calm, without anger. "Because I never cared for you expecting anything in return. I only did what my sister asked me to do with the world. Be good, even when the world isn't." Beatrice couldn't respond. She felt tears rise. It was the first time anyone had refused something from her, and yet she felt accepted. That night, Beatrice couldn't sleep. The image of Anna turning down the house echoed inside her like a bell. There was something in that answer, firm, kind, courageous, that shook her to the core. She lay in bed and thought of Clara, thought of her own mother, thought of everything she had done to avoid feeling, and failed, because now she felt everything at once. The next day, she invited Anna to share tea in the garden. The sky was tinged with amber. The twilight light touched the leaves as if blessing a new beginning. Beatrice spoke without being interrupted. "I grew up thinking love was a transaction, that good people earned rewards, that caregiving was the job of those paid to do it. When my mother got sick, I didn't go. I was too busy trying to prove I was somebody. And when she died, I simply didn't know how to live anymore." Her voice cracked. Her eyes welled up. "My husband loved me the best he could, but I never knew how to give love back. I was too bitter, too hard. And when Gabriel was born, I was afraid I'd repeat the story. I think I did." Anna just listened, as always, with that kind of silence that welcomes. Beatrice drew a deep breath. "When you came here, I hated you, because you reminded me of everything I lost. Your calm, your selflessness, your freedom. Because unlike me, you always knew who you were, and I never did." Then for the first time Beatrice looked into Anna's eyes without a mask. "I don't know how to ask for forgiveness, but I'm here, and if there's still time, I want to learn from you, how to be better." Anna, her voice low, replied, "There's always time, Mrs. Beatrice, always." The call came early. Anna answered with the hoarse voice of someone who hadn't slept well. On the other end, the hospital gave the news. Mrs. Lourdes had taken a turn for the worse during the night. Beatrice, upon hearing the muffled sound of the update, simply said, "I'm going with you." She didn't ask for permission. She just put on her coat, slipped on her shoes, and went. In the car, the silence was dense. Anna held the small blue box with her mother's documents on her lap. Beatrice asked nothing. She knew the weight that object carried couldn't be measured in words. The room was small, bright, peaceful. Mrs. Lourdes struggled to breathe, but her eyes were open. When she saw Anna, she smiled. When she saw Beatrice, her eyes brimmed with tears. She tried to speak, but her voice didn't come. Beatrice stepped closer, touched her hand. "You don't know me, but I know the love of your daughter, and it's because of that love that I'm here." Anna wept in silence, holding her mother's other hand. It was a sacred triangle. 3 women bound by something stronger than time, blood, or pain. Redemption. Mrs. Lourdes passed with a gentle sigh, as if handing her soul over without fear. Beatrice remained even after that final breath, gently wiping the corners of her mouth, smoothing her hair with her fingers, as if she were her own mother. "Thank you for bringing someone into the world who taught me how to live." That's all she said. Anna embraced her, no rush, no words. And in that embrace, Beatrice felt for the first time in years that the weight had left her shoulders, not because the past had changed, but because love had finally stayed. It was Saturday. The house smelled like cake in the oven and echoed with laughter from the yard. Beatrice, still recovering, watched through the window as her son ran with a free, open smile. Beside him, Anna taught him how to plant a sunflower seed. Gabriel laughed as the dirt clung to his fingers. "Will it grow, Aunt Anna?" "Yes, it will, but it needs patience, water, and sun." Beatrice smiled, not just at the scene, but because, for the first time, it felt like home, a real home, not the prettiest nor the biggest, but the most alive. After Mrs. Lourdes's funeral, Anna agreed to stay with them for a few days, not out of need, but by choice. The house felt lighter, airier. Gabriel began calling her Aunt Anna naturally, and Anna, with her generous heart, never corrected him. Beatrice watched everything unfold without interfering. And one night, while watching the two laugh over a board game, she whispered to herself, This is what I almost lost, trying so hard to look strong." The tear that fell was warm, but it no longer hurt. On Sunday, Beatrice made breakfast by herself. For the first time, crooked toast, coffee too strong, badly sliced fruit. But when Gabriel sat down and said, "It's perfect, Mom," she couldn't help but laugh. Anna walked into the kitchen, wide-eyed. "You made this?" "I did, and yes, you're allowed to laugh." And then 3 voices, one of a child, one of a simple woman, and one of a woman finally free, blended like notes in a single song, a song about starting over, about belonging, and about a garden, finally in bloom. Beatrice began walking every day to the same square where she once parked in a rush to handle business. Now she walked slowly, noticed the faces, the tired mothers, the children in worn uniforms, the women who seemed to carry the world on their backs, and she wondered how many of them were invisible Annas, how many Claras were lost before anyone ever noticed. She returned home with a thought beating in her chest like a drum. "I want to start a project in Clara's name." Anna hesitated when she heard, "You don't have to. It's not an obligation. It's because I finally understand. I spent my life trying to prove I was somebody, and I forgot what it means to be human." In the weeks that followed, Beatrice called in favors, sold an old property, and created a modest foundation. Name, Casa Clara. Mission, to offer support, shelter, and dignity to women in crisis with small children. Gabriel helped paint the walls. Anna taught the first residents how to cook, read, and write. The first woman to arrive at the shelter carried a baby in her arms and tears in her eyes. Beatrice welcomed her at the door, held out her arms and said, "Here, you don't have to pretend to be strong." The woman cried. So did Beatrice. And there, among donation boxes, the smell of fresh paint and children's laughter, a new kind of home began to grow, not one with perfect walls, but one born from embraced imperfection. And when Anna placed a small plaque in the foundation garden with the name Clara, Beatrice held her hand and whispered, "Now she truly lives." It was late afternoon. The sky, painted in shades of gold, wrapped the porch in a serene, almost sacred light. Beatrice sat in a rocking chair, barefoot, a closed book resting in her lap. The garden before her was simple but vibrant with color. Sunflowers, lavender, and a small rosebush Anna had planted in silence. Gabriel rode his bike with neighborhood kids. In the background, laughter and voices filled the house that was once as cold as marble, and now felt warm as an embrace. The house no longer had bosses or servants, just people, people who cared, people who failed, people who loved. Anna brewed tea in the kitchen, humming softly. When Gabriel ran in, sweaty and red-cheeked, Beatrice pulled him into a hug. "Mom, can we plant more flowers?" "As many as you want, my love." And in that moment, she realized she no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Who she was already there, in the small gestures, in the names remembered, in the silences embraced. Before nightfall, Beatrice walked to the garden and watered Clara's rosebush. She touched the earth with her hands, whispered a prayer with no words, and when the breeze brushed gently across her face, she smiled, a quiet smile, the kind worn by someone who finally understood. It's not the past that defines us, but what we choose to do with it. And on that soil, where so much pain had once been buried, life was blooming, not a life meant to impress, but a life that nourishes, that sustains, and in the end, saves. Did you catch it? The greatest transformation in Beatrice's life didn't come through wealth, status, or success. It came through listening, through humility, through a woman who barely spoke but taught everything. So let me ask you this. Who is the Anna that crossed your path, but you didn't really see? How many Claras were forgotten along the way because you were too busy trying to look strong? Do you have the courage to change before life runs out of time? What you just witnessed wasn't just a story about forgiveness. It was about presence, about breaking cycles, about choosing not to repeat the absences that once shattered you. So be honest with yourself. What silence do you still need to break? Who in your life deserves a hug, not for what they've done, but for everything you never said? Maybe your new chapter begins with a simple gesture, a phone call, a quiet apology, a whispered, "I'm still here." And if this story touched something deep inside you, don't keep that feeling to yourself. Leave a comment below. What part of this story moved you the most? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. And if you want more stories that heal, that stir something real inside you, that remind you what really matters, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, turn on notifications, because here, every story takes root. And maybe, just maybe, yours is the next one ready to bloom.